there is a much stronger sense of connection of male and female, of masculine and feminine. Men and women both have masculine and feminine energy, and a great deal of the work that is done in this tradition is about finding a point of balance so that every person can experience the male and female parts of themselves, masculine and feminine parts of themselves, without a woman being called butch and a man being called a sissy. Any of these, you know, we're all frightened of, we've been taught to be frightened of the other. Men in particular, many of them have a hard time getting at all close to any of their soft and feminine side because they're afraid that it's weak. They've been told that it's weak. And this tradition understands that and calls forth the feminine in a man that makes him able to be gentle when the time is to be gentle, and strong when the time is to be strong, and the wisdom to know the difference. And for women, the women in this tradition that I've known are very strong women. They're not excessively masculine, but they're not hiding in the corners, which I really value. There are several strong, two at least, strong feminine figures in the Native American. Joy has done talks on both of, I think, both grandmother spider and white buffalo calf woman.
A little bit more grandmother spider.
Right. Grandmother spider comes from the Pueblo and Native tradition. She is seen as the weaver of the web of the world. And without this framework for everything to live on, nothing, you know, there would be nothing there. It is said that at the very beginning that she spun a web and she laced it with dew, with drops of dew, and then threw it up into the sky, and the drops of dew became the stars. She does weave the web of life, and one of the things in the Native tradition, if you are drawn toward a concept or an animal or anything at all that you hear about, if you have a consistent sense of it, it's said that you probably have, that's the kind of medicine that you have. And what it means is that, for example, I was drawn for a long time to owls. Didn't know why, and of course the first time I got an animal ally in this tradition, it was an owl. And they would say, and this happens all the time, people who have some kind of an affinity, when you first journey for an animal ally, the first ally that comes to you is almost always an animal that you're going, oh yeah, of course, well, who else would it be, you know? Because it's an animal that has always been close to you, and they had things to teach you even if you weren't aware that they did. So the people who have spider medicine are said to be able to, because the grandmother spider's web is not really visible. We don't know that we're living in the web, but you know, it's almost like it gives everything a place to be. And so when something happens to shake the web, depending on how big the shake is, maybe, you know, many people feel it. So, you know, when there's a psychic disturbance, it's one of the ways that it's said that people understand, oh, there's something wrong, because the web is shaking. So people with spider medicine are people who have more of an ability to see the web, to understand how it works, and to, hopefully, the people who do it right, to work with grandmother spider in strengthening it and helping to see that the interconnections between people work well, and people and things. And she is, this story comes from the Pueblo and the Navajo. And I believe Zuni is one of the Pueblo tribes, but the Zuni people have her as well. She's a very strong influence in this tradition. The other woman who as an individual person has a very strong presence in the Midwestern, and particularly the Lakota Sioux. The Sioux nation is actually a conglomeration of a number of different individual tribes. One is Lakota, one is Dakota, and there's a Takota, I think. Anyhow, there's 5 or 6 of them. And so Lakota Sioux, this is where the tradition, the Sundance tradition, comes from. White buffalo calf woman was said to appear to 2 hunters who had been sent out to look for game at a time when their village, their tribe, was having a serious, there was a big drought, there was a famine, and the people were very hungry and having a lot, and there was other unrest caused by all of these problems. And people were very upset and they were not happy. So the chief sent out 2 hunters. And they were walking along, and suddenly there was a woman there where there had been no one there before. And one of the hunters saw her, she was very beautiful, saw her and immediately wanted to be next to her, be with her, and started to come toward her, and she said, no, that's not what I'm here for. But he was unable to restrain himself, and he came and got close and pulled her into his arms and tried to kiss her. And there was a big cloud that came up around them, and when the cloud cleared, she was there, and the only other thing that was there was a pile of bones. Because she was a sacred woman, and was not to be approached in this manner, and he had not, he had tried to force his way with her. The other hunter was very, very concerned about this, and and started to draw his bow, and she said, no, peace. Don't worry. I am a sacred woman. This man was taken. She said, this man was taken by the spirit of the crazy buffalo, and it made him want me even when he should not. And so this is what had to happen. But I am here to help your people, and I ask you to go back to your tribe, tell the people to prepare a feast for me. And he said, but we have no food. And she said, you will have food. But prepare a feast and to make ready, and I will come and bring teachings, and your tribe will prosper. So he went back to the tribe and told them about this, and she had said that in 2 days she would come. And in 2 days, suddenly, here she was, right in the middle of the village. She just appeared. And the people were certainly, they expected somebody to walk in, but they didn't expect somebody to appear right in front of them. So they were all a little concerned, but she explained to them that she was a holy woman, and that she was not of this world, but she had come to help them. She had heard their prayers and knew that they had need. And she gave them, some stories say, 7 sacred rituals. Some other stories say there were more than 7, but when the Catholics came in an attempt to make things match up, that they turned her rituals into 7 because there were 7 Catholic sacraments. And so there was supposed to be the same idea. But she did bring some very important rituals to the people. The most important of which, well, one of the big ones at least, was the sacred medicine pipe. That has been called the peace pipe and many other things. But it was a way for people to sit down, and when the saying is that anything spoken over an open pipe must be spoken in truth and must be spoken with good intention and with integrity. If you break an agreement that you make over an open pipe, it's a big deal. So this was a way of people, part of the problem that the people were having was a lot of social unrest, part of it from famine and drought, and part of it simply because they were just not, they were getting out of balance. And so she said to them, these rituals that I give you, the ceremonies that I'm giving you, are the way that you should live your life. And if you live your life by these things, you will prosper and you will be happy. So she brought them the sacred medicine pipe to be able to use it whenever they needed to sit down and know that they were going to speak truth to each other. The pipe is used in a number of different other ceremonies, including very often a sweat lodge. She brought them the sweat lodge, the vision quest, the sun dance, the girls' coming of age ceremony. There was one for boys, but not for girls, and she said no. Gotta have one for girls too. There was a way to make people your relations, and she, in particular, they had a tribe that they were fighting with. I believe it was the R-E-E tribe, and they were fighting. And she said, no, you can't fight with these people anymore. They're going to be your family. Here's how you make people family. And once they're your family, you can't fight with them anymore. So she brought them a ceremony for turning people, making people into part of your family. She brought one that was called the keeping of the soul. There was a lot of superstition and unrest about people who died. There was concerns about ghosts and other kinds of things. And so she brought a ceremony in which they took a piece of the hair of the person who has died and smudged it with sweetgrass smoke, rolled it in a deer hide, and then a person who had either volunteered to be or had been appointed the keeper of the soul agreed to live very harmoniously and in great balance for an entire year, and they kept the gray, the piece of hair, with them, so that the spirit of the person who had passed would be able to calmly make their transition to the next world across the course of the year. And she also brought something called the throwing of the ball. I had not heard of this before I started looking this up, but it was where a young girl stands in the center and there are people in 4 directions. She has a ball and she throws it out to one person and they throw it back, and then to another person, and then she goes around in this fashion. And this was a way for the people to remember that everything that you put out comes back to you, and that there is balance. The energy goes back, it comes back to the center. It goes out again and it comes back to the center. These, and then there were some other smaller things from the people who thought that there might have been more than just 7 traditions that she brought, 7 rituals. But these are some of the core teachings of this tradition, especially the Sundance and the sweat lodges and things like that. They're wonderful. I've done several of these things, and they're really wonderful. In general terms, I think, this is the gospel according to Shirley, I think that there was less division between male and female because they saw themselves as equal, peer relations to the entire world, and not just living, not just plants and animals, but the rocks and the tree and the earth itself and everything. They saw spirit, animism in general terms, see spirit